You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it's Monday. It's May 27th, 2025. Thank you for joining us on CorsiNation.com. You can follow me on X at CorsiJerome1 and on Substack at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. And we're doing Substacks almost every day. Okay, so I want to get into a number of stories today. There's actually quite a bit going on, and there's a lot going on with the Ukrainians and Russians. I want to cover that. A lot going on in Gaza, a lot going on with this big, beautiful bill. And so we've got a lot to cover. I want to start, however, with some of the things on the pedophilia issue, because it does highlight some things the Department of Justice is doing that have not been recognized. And I think that Don Bongino and Kash Patel are just about ready to break out with some new staffing and new structures, which are going to permit them to go after a lot of the corruption we've been seeing, which is massive on the part of the Democrats and this New World Order crowd that's taken over the Democratic Party. As I said, the Democratic Party has become a communist party. It started that in the 1950s, and it's now gone pretty solidly communist. And it's becoming increasingly a treasonous party, that it doesn't believe in the United States of America, doesn't believe in our values, wants to destroy America. These globalists want to kill people. And so therefore, it's a very, very dangerous time right now. And we have a lot of evil to expose. So Chris, if you could, let's start with this Colorado clip. It's a Colorado state legislator who is explaining where Colorado is, where the Colorado Democrats are on the issue of sex with children, pedophilia. It's a pretty shocking clip. Here we go.
About my job as a representative and also just what happens here at the Capitol. We sat in a committee all day discussing whether or not somebody that buys little children, these are 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids, and they buy them for sex, that we tried to get a bill through, Representative Bradley sent one through, that was going to put these buyers in jail. Right now, most of the time, they get off on probation. Almost all the time, they get off on probation after buying a child and raping a little child. And we tried to say, well, they need to at least serve a minimum of 4 years. And then we sat and listened to the Democrats fight against this bill, fight against putting these people in jail, and came up with all kinds of reasons, including that these buyers are victims themselves. This is very discouraging, and it's also very disgusting for me that they would actually defend this. And then they voted completely along party lines. The Democrats voted 100% that they did not want to put these pedophiles in jail. They defended the pedophiles. This is why it's so difficult sometimes to do what we do around here. We know we're on the side of right, we know we're on the side of morality, and we get shot down by, I do not understand the thought process behind this, but we do get shot down. This is why I would encourage you to do a few things to help us with this. First, if you believe in prayer at all, please pray. We are fighting truly dark forces here. This is not okay. This is evil stuff that we're dealing with. And if you have the ability to come up and testify on bills or anything like this, please do so. Your voice is very important to what we're trying to accomplish around here. We are the minority, but with you, we become a powerful force.
That's a very powerful statement.
These are the times.
A very, very powerful statement. And Chris, you can come on and we'll comment on this. I want to cover the next story too. Do you have his name? Who was that?
Good question.
Yeah, it was a Colorado representative, but I didn't hit the name on it.
Right.
Maybe if we go into X, we can find it. But it's shocking that the Democrats are. I wrote a book, maybe 15 years ago, called "The Bad Samaritans," and this was on the trying to get God out of the ACLU, become a Marxist movement, and trying to get God out of everything in our lives.
Okay.
And what's his name?
Scott Bottoms.
Okay, and is he House or Senate? And what part of the?
It says Colorado representative.
So representative. Well, that could be either actually, but right. Probably House. At any rate, it's a great statement, and some of the guys was really heartfelt about it. Now, I want you to, this next story, the Department of Justice. Now, this is a May 8th press release from the Department of Justice, and I literally had not heard about it. Someone sent it to me, and it really kind of shocked me that this got zero publicity. Okay, so on May 7, 2025, the Department of Justice announced the results of Operation Restore Justice. Okay, and they rescued 115 children and arrested 205 child sexual abuse offenders in a nationwide crackdown. And this was a coordinated effort which was executed over the course of 5 days by all 55 FBI field offices, the Child Exploitation and Obscenity Section in the department's criminal division, and the United States Attorney's offices around the country. Okay, now that's a big announcement, and what it led to is that Kash Patel said, the Department of Justice will never stop fighting to protect victims, especially child victims. We will not rest until we hunt down, arrest, and prosecute every child predator who preys on the most vulnerable among us. This is according to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I'm grateful to the FBI and their state and local partners for their incredible work in Operation Restore Justice, and I've directed my prosecutors not to negotiate. Every child deserves to grow up free from fear and exploitation, and the FBI will continue to be relentless in our pursuit of those who exploit the most vulnerable among us, said FBI Director Kash Patel. Operation Restore Justice proves that no predator is out of reach and no child will be forgotten. By leveraging the strength of all of our field offices and our federal, state, and local partners, we're sending a clear message: there's no place to hide for those who prey on children. Okay, and when you look at who they got, I mean, they represented, they got in child sex trafficking in Minneapolis. I got a state trooper, an Army reservist who was arrested for allegedly producing child sexual abuse material while wearing his uniforms. In Norfolk, VA, an illegal alien from Mexico arrested for transporting minors across state lines for sex. In Washington, D.C., a former Metropolitan Police Department officer was arrested for allegedly trafficking minor victims. Okay, in many cases, parental vigilance and community outreach efforts played a critical role in bringing these offenders to justice. For example, a California man was arrested about 8 hours after a young victim bravely came forward and disclosed their abuse to FBI agents after an online safety presentation at a school near Albany, New York. Okay, now the problem in all of this is that these offenses are massive, they're horrible, and the movie on it, which the name I forget of the movie, but it's a very, very powerful movie. I think Jim Caviezel was in it. Do you remember the name of the movie, Chris?
I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, it was a great movie. It was done by, I believe, Angel Films released it. And I'm glad to see that this should have had massive coverage, and it got no coverage.
Sound of Freedom. It's Sound
of Freedom. Yes,
As a matter
that's
of
right.
fact, a lot of those on the left and critics from the left had tried to destroy the film, or basically they tried to discredit the film.
Yeah, well, they want to have minor attracted adults.
Maps.
You want to normalize it so that these children are taken away from their parents, completely psychologically destroyed, and forced to have sex with adults who are not going to be the most wholesome adults in the world. They're going to be criminals, twisted people who want to have sex with children who don't. And why the demon Democratic left is so determined to sexualize children is, put up the cover of the book I wrote, which was The Truth About Neo-Marxism, Cultural Maoism, and Anarchy. This book was harder to read because it's got a lot of the political philosophy in it. I tried to explain how Marxism failed. The workers of the world did not revolt in 1840s like Marx predicted. Instead, the labor movement handled a lot of the problems Marx was addressing. So the whole movement went into the Frankfurt School and unliberated, just get completely any kind of sex you want to engage in was suddenly all okay. Okay, and then it turns into anarchy. Okay, which is what you see in Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all the rest of it. And we're going to start exposing here, and I've started to do some work with the whistleblower who's on Act Blue, and the Justice Department only partly caught Act Blue. Act Blue was raising huge amounts of money, and they were giving it to candidates, Democratic candidates, through stealing somebody's identity and making a credit card payment in that person's name and social security number, even though the person didn't know it. Okay, and they did that because FEC demands their contributions to candidates be made by somebody. But the real scam is that the drug and sex trade with children on the border gets brought into the country through operations in states like Tennessee. The money goes into TD Bank, which is Toronto Dominion Bank, and then the criminals money launder it to get it out by buying houses and getting huge overvalued mortgage loans that don't really get booked as mortgage loans. So they're just drawing millions out of the bank, pocketing it, and then giving it to the NGOs, non-government organizations who work with the Democrats on their evil causes, woke Democrats. So this is, again, how in conscience could anyone just decide they're going to abuse children and take that money and put it into Black Lives Matter through a money laundering scheme that a major bank, TD Bank, has already paid, I think, a $3 billion fine on the credit card part of this scam. Chris?
That's what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so these people need to be not only gone to prison, they need to be, there's a special place in hell reserved for these people.
Oh, what really bothers me are the people who are defending these child sex predators. Why? I mean, like you said before, some of these so-called these pseudo-intellectuals on the left are trying to justify such actions by calling these people minor attracted persons. That's the soft PC way of saying child predator or
child molester, child
or
demon
pedophile.
molester.
Exactly. The problem is here. It's not even the problem. The problem is, yes, that they're defending these people, but we have to ask ourselves why. Why are they defending these people?
Yeah, well, the satanic nature of this, and put up Craig Lund's book on satanic, Silicon Satan. The sexualization of children is fundamental to the satanic attempt to destroy all that's good. And so sexual perversions go from, first of all, you start with sex as procreation of man and woman to create children. There's Silicon Satan and Craig's book, which we've been covering extensively. And his second book is being put up in episodes on our website, and he's now animating the book. Please do read Silicon Satan. I think it's an extremely important book about what goes on in Silicon Valley and in the elites, the P. Diddy's and all the others, Jeffrey Epstein, and that whole evil crowd. Now, what I'm saying here is that you start out with saying, okay, we can have, lesbians and homosexuals. Well, these two people just love each other. Or why do you want to destroy their love for each other? Well, it doesn't describe what the culture of homosexuality or lesbianism really is about. Okay, so it's prettied up, and there was a public relations campaign starting in the 50s to normalize all this. So then I predicted it would go to pedophilia. It's gone there. Next, it's going to go to sadomasochism, and it'll end up, advancing to where it ends up in snuff sex, where somebody's killed and sexually molested and killed to heighten the sexual excitement of those watching the event, and filmed snuff films. Somebody dies. Or then you can have sex necrophilia, sex with dead people. Might as well have sex has nothing to do with procreation. Might as well have sex with the dead. And they will one by one normalize every single one of these events, and transgenderism will be at the heart of it. So your gender is whatever you want it to be, animal, past life, whatever you want it to be, because it's not your sex, it's your performance idea of sex. This is just twisted. And Craig, I think, I find the whole subject abhorrent. And it's one that I'm glad to see that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are intent on eliminating.
Oh yeah, I know you call me Craig because I'm starting to look like Craig Lund a little bit
You
with the
start,
beard.
like, look at Craig Lund. You're getting
The beard.
a beard now, and you're getting I think we're all going Craig Lund here.
Yes. Well, hey, you know what? The guy, he has a great beard and a cool hat.
He's got a great persona. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got this dark, menacing persona.
I'll put that up again. We'll have to put that up again here. But you can find.
I mean, the whole there we go, and also Mike McCormick is there. Mike McCormick is doing a lot about the Catholic Church and the pedophilia. The Catholic Church has basically become a homosexual pedophile organization. And Mike's point is you don't advance unless that's what you become. I get this book. This is a book that I've had and quote from periodically. Okay, it's called Goodbye, Good Men, and it was written by Michael Rose. It's How Liberals Brought Corruption into the Catholic Church. And it has a paragraph that I quote frequently. It's on page 83, talking about what happens when the homosexuals get into positions of authority in the church and in the seminaries for making priests and nuns and clergy. He writes, once homosexuals come into positions of authority in their orders and in their religious houses of formation, the seminaries, it is difficult to attract even one heterosexual man to the order. Consequently, the impression given in some religious houses is that they are gay houses, that is, made up of either all or a strong majority of homosexual priests and brothers. Those who remain and dissent from this dominant homosexual agenda are often ruthlessly persecuted. Okay, and so he goes on in great length about that, but that's the substance of this book. And he's talking about a gay subculture that dominates the entire Catholic Church. Okay, so and so he quotes one of the people who had experience with this directly, saying 40% of the seminarians at Sacred Heart were practicing homosexuals. And explaining that, he said the rector at one point wrote a letter to all seminarians saying that those who are frequenting the homosexual bars in Milwaukee were causing the police to investigate complaints that prudence was necessary to avoid scandal. He also explained that classes were conducted to orient the seminarians toward accepting homosexuals and their homosexuality as a viable lifestyle. Those homosexuals who objected were singled out for psychiatric evaluation. Okay, so if you don't accept their evil, they say you're the one who's psychologically ill. Okay, that's why they say, the woke always were saying they're for democracy. Well, there's an excellent editorial written today on the Gatestone Institute. I follow them very closely. Gatestone Institute is gatestoneinstitute.com. And what they're pointing out is that in 2022, the European Union adopted the Digital Services Act, which is supposed to protect the rights of social media users and provide a safe online environment by, quote, limiting the spread of illegal and harmful content. What constitutes illegal and harmful content was not defined and could be anything the European Commission defines as such, along with the right to impose fines and shut the websites down. Okay, so, the reason given by German Domestic Intelligence Agency for designating the AfD, that's one of the political parties in Germany, as an extremist organization is neither fascism nor racism. In fact, not a single AfD leader advocates fascist or racist positions. And what actually may be objectionable to many Europeans is that AfD is, quote, the most pro-Israel and philo-Semitic party in Germany. Okay, so politicians in Germany who disagree with the worldview of these officials in power, which is all towards this intolerance of free speech, and these European leaders today refer to parties and politicians they wish to exclude as, quote, far right. The term is used to refer to racist, xenophobic, and authoritarian parties. None of the parties mentioned above show the slightest tendency towards racism, xenophobia, and authoritarianism, half as much as their opponents do. Many Europeans today appear blind to the consequences of ever-increasing immigration and a growing Muslim population in Europe. They're dismissive of Muslims' continued mass migration, enthusiastic birth rate, and remain stubbornly deaf to the concerns shouted by their non-Muslim citizenry. Ultimately, the Muslims are going to want Sharia law. They're going to want to push out the Christians. They're going to want to take over. And they're not assimilating into European society. But again, we're not seeing the reporting of the churches that are being burned. We're not seeing the devastation that's being waged upon European culture. And these are cultural wars, which is what the Frankfurt School wanted to conduct. Okay, now the remedy for this is to expose the evil and to pursue truth and return to God in prayer. And it's in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14 that we have to get down on our knees and ask God to forgive us for letting it get this far. I see Texas is introducing, I believe, a constitutional amendment to put the Ten Commandments back into the schools. Starting in the 1940s, Justice Black and these others started saying there was an absolute separation between church and state, which is never what the Constitution or our founding fathers wanted. They did not want a state-approved religion, like the Anglican Church in Great Britain, such that all other religions were outlawed. They wanted religious freedom, which was the only solution they could figure out to how Christianity could flourish and not ultimately be persecuted. We're seeing a very, very dark era right now with this persecution going on of Christians around the world. And it reminds me, this and other things, of the end days predictions we see in the St. John, the Apocalypse in the Bible. We are, I believe, in end days, and it's not going to be pretty or fun. Okay, now I want to move on to a couple of other subjects on, we're seeing, let's just talk about the war in Ukraine, because we're seeing that over the weekend, there was evidently Zelensky has been buddying up with all the Europeans, and they're all telling him that he can win the war. Now, Europe and NATO is on the verge of a full-blown war with Russia. They're getting ready to fire these long-range missiles deep into Russian territory, and this is approved by the NATO commanders. You got Macron who wants to do it. The French, of course, are rabidly anti-Russian, and so if they allow the Ukrainians to fire these long-range missiles that were provided by the United States, these ATACMS missiles that Biden gave, well, then, it's like putting us at war with Russia, because Russia's nuclear policy was redefined to say that if a country like Ukraine uses our missiles with our military firing them and our guidance systems guiding them from space, then Russia's at war with the United States. It's not any longer a proxy war or surrogate war. Okay, so, but German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has announced that all the Western nations that are providing Ukraine with long-range missiles have now given Ukraine permission to fire those missiles into Russian territory. That includes France and Great Britain. I don't believe Trump has done this. Trump, however, was saying that Biden, who launched a massive drone strike against Ukraine, was intensifying the violence, and evidently Trump was saying he was upset by him. But of course, Zelensky launched a massive drone attack on Putin's airplane, attempting to assassinate him. Now, this is only going to get the heightened tension and more war. And Trump is right to want to end the violence so this war can be negotiated. Now, Russia is still saying that coming out of the discussions in Istanbul, Russia is preparing a peace deal. And over the weekend, something like 1,000 Russian and 1,000 Ukrainian prisoners were exchanged in agreement to fulfill an agreement that was made in last week's talks in Istanbul between Ukraine and Russia. So the best thing that we could do right now is for Trump to do is simply quit funding Zelensky and quit funding NATO. We don't need NATO if NATO is going to cause World War III. And if Donald Trump recognizes the truth here, and I believe he does, I've got great confidence in Donald Trump in this term because I think he's seen through the lies. And the mainstream media is not giving us accurate reporting. Mainstream media is going to be saying Donald Trump is really upset at the Russians and the Russians are intensifying the violence. That's the theme the mainstream media wants to sell to you. That, that Ukraine is the freedom fighters. Ukraine are not the freedom fighters. Poroshenko was the president before Zelensky, and Zelensky have sent these Nazi brigades in from Western Ukraine. They use Nazi symbols. They have Nazi ideology. They hate Jews. Okay, these brigades were sent into the two provinces that Putin occupies because those provinces are Russian speaking. And they started killing people who wanted those provinces independent. They started killing priests in the Russian Orthodox Church because it was Russian Orthodox. They persecuted the Christians, and believe me, if they could find Jews, they would have persecuted them too. Okay, there's probably not that many Jews left in Ukraine after Hitler got finished with working with the neo-Nazis in Ukraine to send the Jews to the concentration camps into the ovens. Okay, so the provocateurs here are the United States State Department under Obama and Hillary and Biden, who the Democrats hate Russia since Russia fall the Berlin Wall, Russia renounced communism. And the Democrats are furious at that. They're going to want to go to war with Russia to get communism back. Okay, they love the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, because it's gung-ho, let's destroy America. And the Democrats are sure on that agenda. I can't see how anybody could vote for a Democrat right now. And so therefore, my summary here of what's going on in Ukraine is that quit funding Zelensky, quit funding the war, quit sending them war material. And this war will be over in 24 hours or 48 hours because Zelensky will then begin realizing his life's at risk. This SOB has been having his wife buy millions of dollars worth of jewelry. They've got mansions, probably one in the United States. He's not fulfilling the demands of his oligarchs unless he keeps the war going. And the French and the Germans want the war going because they think they'll make money on the munitions. They think that the war economy will stimulate their otherwise dying net zero economies with all the idiocy they went through on this green energy nonsense. So we're at a point here where this is extremely dangerous. Let's switch to the Middle East. In the Middle East, Netanyahu is saying he's going to have a massive operation in the Gaza. He's going to devastate it. He's going to make sure the tunnels are blown up. There won't be two-story structures because they'll level everything. It's not going to be habitable. He's going to get rid of Hamas. And, of course, they're saying the reports are that Trump is saying slow down. Well, again, our press lies. And I don't see Trump slowing down on the aid to Israel. I think that's all within the same plan that Trump and Netanyahu have agreed to. So you get all these stories about how Netanyahu is in trouble politically. Netanyahu's war council and the Knesset have been behind Netanyahu's determination to get Hamas out of Gaza. Hamas is an organization funded by Iran. They want to kill Jews. They have not released the hostages. There may be as many as maybe 20 or 30 of them have been killed. There's probably who knows how many are still alive, but there's going to be some who are still alive. We want to get them out of there, out of the Gaza. Okay, so if Hamas returns to the Gaza, Iran returns to the Gaza, the hate Jews return to the Gaza, we repeat a pattern that has not worked for 50 years or longer. Right now, you've got Hezbollah in disarray in Lebanon because the Israelis killed a lot of the leadership of Hezbollah, even blew them up with their cell phones, which Israel had tracked. And now the word is that Israel is preparing to, once these discussions with Iran and the United States in Rome deteriorate, and Witkoff, our negotiator, left over the weekend in disgust because the Iranians were insisting on their right as a sovereign nation to enrich uranium. Well, once those negotiations fall apart, I think Israel will strike Iran because Iran is very close to being able to make a nuclear weapon. One nuclear weapon, the size that was detonated in Hiroshima or Nagasaki, detonated successfully over Tel Aviv, would destroy the modern Jewish state as we know it. And that's just not going to happen. We had Kristi Noem come out over the weekend, Department of Homeland Security, I believe, and say that Iran must not have nuclear weapons. And so therefore, if Israel has to strike, it'll probably be a prolonged strike over several days. And Israel will be able to, I think, take out the nuclear sites, probably reduce the country to the Stone Age, and kill a lot of the mullahs who are running the country since Ayatollah Khomeini in 1978 came back and overthrew the Shah. And Jimmy Carter, our Democratic president, welcomed Ayatollah Khomeini into the region. Of course, Jimmy Carter also was working with the communist Robert Pastor, the professor at American University, who wanted to create the North American Union. I was after him for years under the George W. Bush Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America. I wanted to build this football field, 10 football field wide or whatever it was, corridor through Texas, coming up from ports in deepwater ports in Mexico to end up in a Mexican customs office in the middle of the United States in Kansas. Okay, so Carter gave away the Panama Canal to Panama, which Trump is trying to get back. And that raises another subject. I'm working very strongly with Todd Callender, who has a deep water port in Chile. China has a memorandum of understanding to buy it. Todd is looking for U.S. buyers, and we're trying to help him figure out a way to prevent the Chinese from getting a hold of this port. And the Chinese want to build, this is their landing spot for the Belt and Road Initiative in South America. China already has a port in Peru. China could control the Pacific access for South America when Trump's vision is hemisphere security. It's why he wants to go up into Greenland and in Canada to extend U.S. influence, with Canada becoming a U.S. state, Greenland becoming a protectorate or whatever. At any rate, with the weaponization of the Arctic and the Antarctic, we cannot have China having a big foothold in the Pacific port, this Chilean port, which is Copia A port, Copia Port A, Copia Port E is the name of the port. So, it's a natural deep water port on the Pacific, and in the works for about 10 years has been between Brazil, Chile, and other countries in the region to build a bi-oceanic corridor linking the ports in Argentina on the Atlantic with this Chilean port on the Pacific to link it by a highway and rail. If China gets all that, we'll be having nothing but problems in the hemisphere. We'll have lost. And by the way, it would have been just fine for Obama and Biden to let the Chinese have all the ports in the southern hemisphere they want. China now owns about 160 of them. And we need to perceive this as a national security emergency. I've written 2 articles about it in American Thinker, and I'm probably going to write more. Okay, so I want to finish up on the economy because this big new bill is going through now the Senate, and there's going to be changes in it. I think the Senate Democrats are going to find out that the Republicans will want to reduce even further our deficit spending. Now we're approaching $34 trillion in deficit spending, and that's unsustainable. We're paying over $1 trillion a year in interest on the money. This bill contains some fundamental things which will re-architect our financial system. And by the way, if I'm again imploring you to get into some gold and silver, especially with your IRAs. Right now, today, gold is trading at $3,295 an ounce, and silver at $32.82 an ounce. Gold is holding over $3,000. Gold will be at $6,000, possibly next year. And when I started talking about this, gold was at $1,800 an ounce. Go to Swiss America, and Chris, show the Swiss Americas on CorsiNation.com, because it's very easy to apply and get consultation on setting up a self-directed IRA. And I'm encouraging everybody to get a self-directed IRA. With a self-directed IRA, you can get a depository in Delaware where you can hold gold and silver, physical gold and silver in your IRAs and still get tax benefits, tax deferral of the appreciation, tax benefits on how you take your money out. Okay, and the gold and silver will appreciate. You also get a Lloyd's of London guarantee on the gold and silver being there. You don't have to put all your savings or all of your IRA, 401k in gold and silver, but you should put a lot of it in. The stock market, the Dow Jones is trading. It's still trading above where I think it's going to ultimately trade. I'll just get you the exact figures right now as we begin to go into Tuesday after Memorial Day trading. It's 41,000, the Dow Jones, 41,603. And Trump said he was going to extend the implementation of the EU tariffs until, I believe, July 9th. So the stock market may average 10,000 points a day. We're in a sustained sell-off. We reserve. We don't need to be paying interest on our money created. We don't need the Federal fiat currency. The dollars become fiat currency. By the way, what's going to affect now are these new Basel rules, banks to the gold, 100 value on their asset base. Well, that's a change in rule to encourage the banks to continue their rally buying gold. Okay, and I think that the whole consideration act to allow us to have a sovereign cryptocurrency fund that I think will be very strong in XRP. Full disclosure, because it has a standard of trade that can be used instead of the SWIFT system, where now you go, from want to buy something internationally, go from dollars to Deutschmarks, and you send the dollars get exchanged and they get transferred and changed in currency when they get to Germany. Well, that's the SWIFT system. It takes 3 to 5 days, whereas the XRP international trades are instantaneous. XRP is traded. There's no delay. There's no arbitrage. It's just immediately available, and then available in whatever currency you want it available in. Okay, and if you were offering Social Security, people earning their Social Security when they're in 20s and 30s, they can get XRP, which today is trading under $3. That could be worth $1,000 pretty soon. I think a lot of people would take XRP, and we get a lot of the Social Security liabilities off the balance sheet of the United States. So I think there's going to be some creative things done here. But our currency today, especially with Moody's downgrading the United States, is basically a cryptocurrency. There's nothing backing it except the full faith and credit of the United States. And we're having to pay more on our bonds because people are doubting the full faith and credit of the United States, at least in the sense that we are paying off the interest on the bonds that comes due with new bonds that are valued in cheaper dollars, because the dollar's purchasing power is diminishing very fast. And I see that Trump has stopped some of the inflation already, and prices of gasoline and eggs and things of that nature have come down dramatically. The Democratic Party was all about death and destruction, and it was dead set on destroying America. I think if we had honest elections, the Democrats would not be around. Okay, this is Dr. Jerome Corsi today. It's Monday, the 27th of May. Covered a lot of ground. I'll be back tomorrow. We're doing podcasts here every weekday. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win on all these issues here too. So thank you for joining us. Come back tomorrow. Spread the word about this show. And we appreciate you being here. God bless.